You know that feeling you get in a conversation where you suddenly realize you're not actually listening, you're just waiting for your turn to talk? Yeah, we've all been there. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the whole idea of listening and really figure out what it means to do it well.
And this quote just hits it right on the head, doesn't it? For many people, the opposite of speaking isn't listening, it's waiting. Wow, that really challenges this whole idea that listening is just something that happens to you, that it's passive. But as we're about to find out, real listening, it's a whole different ballgame. It's an action.
So, right off the bat, that's the first big shift we need to make. We've got to reframe how we even think about this. Listening is not just the silence you have to endure before you get to talk again. No way. It's an active, super important skill. Just as important as speaking, if not more.
Okay, so to really get a handle on what good listening is, sometimes it helps to look at how we were taught to do it badly. And for a lot of us, that means taking a little trip back in time to the old language classroom. I have a feeling the way they taught listening there is going to sound pretty familiar. Tell me if this rings a bell. Step 1. The teacher pre-teaches a bunch of vocabulary words they assume you won't know. Step 2. They ask a super vague question like, okay, what's the main idea? Step 3. Play the audio and you have to answer these detailed comprehension questions. Then you break down some grammar from it and finally, you listen to the whole thing again. It's like this rigid 5-step recipe, right? So predictable.
And here is the absolute kicker. This whole process, it doesn't actually teach you how to be a better listener at all. It's basically a memory test. It's a quiz to see how good you already are at listening. It doesn't give you any tools to improve.
But that's the whole problem, isn't it? That stiff, cookie-cutter classroom method has almost nothing to do with how we actually listen out in the real world. Real-life listening isn't one size fits all. It's super dynamic. We're constantly changing our approach based on what we're trying to do.
And this comparison just makes it so obvious. Think about it. When you're listening to a train announcement, your brain is like a heat-seeking missile for specific data. What platform? What time? That's it. You're completely zeroed in. But when your friend is telling you some wild story about their weekend, it's a totally different game. You're not trying to memorize every single word. You're catching the vibe. You're showing you're with them, doing the little ahas and nods. It's all about connection.
So here's the bottom line. Being a good listener means being adaptable. It means you have this whole toolkit of different listening skills, and you instinctively know which tool to grab for which situation, whether it's finding your gate at the airport or just kicking back with a friend. So, the big question is, what exactly is in this toolkit?
Okay, so how does our brain actually pull this off? Well, it basically comes down to two major processes that work in tandem. Think of them like two engines powering the whole operation. They're what help us build meaning out of just sound. Let's break them down.
All right, let's make this simple. Think of bottom-up processing as being a kind of word nerd, a linguist. You're starting from the bottom with the small stuff, the individual sounds, the words, the grammar, and you're piecing them together to build up the meaning. Now, top-down processing is the complete opposite. It's like you're a detective. You're starting from the top with the big picture, the context, your background knowledge, your expectations, and you're using all that to make educated guesses and fill in the gaps.
Okay, theory's great, but let's see how this works in real life. Here's a quick scenario for you. Picture this. You're in a super noisy airport. You're waiting for your flight announcement. Your destination? Malaga.
So, what do you think? Are you using top-down or bottom-up processing here?
Trick question. The answer is you're using both. See, your top-down knowledge knows what airport announcements sound like. You're expecting a flight number, a destination, a gate number. That sets you up. Then, your bottom-up processing goes into hyperdrive, scanning all the noise for that one specific sequence of sounds, Malaga. It's this amazing dance between the two, and skilled listeners do it seamlessly.
Okay, how about this one? You have that one friend who is just an amazing storyteller, right? And you know how their stories go. They always have this great, dramatic punchline at the end. So as they're telling you their latest adventure, which type of processing is doing most of the heavy lifting? That one is almost pure top-down. You're drawing on everything you already know about your friend, about how stories work, about the rules of telling a good anecdote. You're basically anticipating the ending. You're not just hearing words, you're listening for that punchline you know is on its way.
All right, so we've got our two engines, top-down and bottom-up. But that's not the whole story. To really get the full picture, we need to assemble the entire listening toolkit. Because really, effective listening isn't just one thing. It's a combination of 3 different kinds of knowledge, all firing at once to create meaning.
Okay, part 1 of the toolkit is what we call schematic knowledge. This is all your top-down, big picture stuff. Think of it as your brain's internal library. It's your knowledge of how different things are structured, like, a recipe isn't going to sound like a funny story. And it's also just your general knowledge about the world. If I start talking about baking a cake, your brain is already pulling up files on flour, sugar, and ovens.
Toolkit Part 2 is knowledge of the setting. This is what connects the big picture to the actual words being said. It's about reading the room, The social situation gives you clues. A stranger walking up to you on the street is probably going to ask for directions, not your life story. And then there are the verbal cues, the co-text. When you hear the phrase, "Excuse me, can you tell me?" your brain already knows a question is coming. It's a signal.
And finally, Toolkit Part 3, Formal Language Knowledge. This is the real nuts and bolts, the pure bottom-up stuff. We're talking about your grasp of grammar, so you know if something happened yesterday or tomorrow. It's about understanding phonology, how the rise and fall of someone's voice, their intonation, can change a statement into a question. And of course, it's about the words themselves, your vocabulary.
And when you see all these pieces together, it just becomes crystal clear. Listening is not passive. It's not just letting sound wash over you. It is an active, intense process of building meaning. You're like an architect, taking all these different materials, context, grammar, world knowledge, and constructing understanding in real time.
So that brings us right back to where we started. The next time you're talking to someone, I want you to ask yourself that question honestly. Are you really listening? Are you actively using your toolkit to build meaning with them? Or are you just waiting? It's a powerful question to ask.